We love to do our mystery player segments here. So let's get into 3 players that are still available at varying different AAVs, what I think their years may be. Some are going to be guys that get 1-year deals, prove it type of deals. Some are guys that probably still will get multi-year deals, and I wonder if that changes the outlook on how the Phillies perceive them. But let's get to 3 players that I've kind of looked at different ranges and things like that. Starting with this first player, split time between 2 different teams last year. Ended up playing 94 games and a little over 300 at-bats. Did hit 318 with a 352 on base, a 470 slug, and an 822 OPS. In those 94 games, 10 home runs, 44 RBI, 28 extra base hits, and his 125 OPS plus was the second best of his major league career. Now, the thing that stands out to you is on his Baseball Savant page, there's a lot of blue and then 2 really high reds. So what does this guy do well? Well, he doesn't swing and miss a lot, and he doesn't strike out a lot. What does he not do so well, or what did he not do so well last year? Well, there was not a lot of hard hit contact. The barrel rates were down. The hard hit percentages were down. Now, this is a guy who has an absolute cannon for an arm, but I think at this point defensively is probably a subpar defender. Now, can play some left, can play some third, spent a lot of time in his second stop this past year as a DH. But the good was career highs in both average and on-base percentage, and he had second best in his career in terms of slug. Only 2023 was better, and OPS only 2019 was better. As I said, he doesn't strike out a lot, he doesn't swing and miss, but the other limited metrics are really what kind of worries me. So this is a guy who feels like, based on his first pitch selectivity, would be very patient at the plate. He only swings at 38% of the first pitches that he sees, but he only sees 3.56% or 3.56 pitches per plate appearances, aka he never walks. Of all the hitters last year, that 3.56 ranked 582nd. Now, that's also includes guys who had 10 at-bats or less, right? But amongst qualified hitters, now he himself was not a qualified hitter, but if he would have been, he would have been tied with Pete Crow Armstrong for seeing the 135th most pitches in a plate appearance, per plate appearance this season. There were 147 qualified hitters, which would have tied him for the 13th fewest pitches per plate appearance this season. So even though he has plate appearances where he's not offering at the first pitch, he's only averaging about another 2.5 pitches per plate appearance. The other thing is he had a 348 BABIP last year, and with the second team, the team that traded for him, he had a 413 BABIP, which means there was a pretty sizable amount of luck in this guy's offensive productivity. If you look at the expected numbers, the expected batting average and the expected slug, they're both down from a season or from the numbers that he posted in terms of his actual batting average and his actual slug. Now, there is merit to say the back of the baseball card means something. A 318 batting average is not a fluke all the way through. This slug that he had was not a fluke all the way through. But I do think that there is potential for a regressive season after the season that he posted last year. Now, this guy's market value projected on an annual average salary is about $6.1 million per season. For $6 million, I certainly would take a chance on a guy like this who posted a year that he did offensively. The defense is subpar. The arm is legitimate. I would imagine he would probably be a platoon piece in left, play a little bit of third, but not a ton. Could DH if you wanted to get Schwarber in left field. Provides you a little bit of positional flexibility, but the defense is not all that strong. So you're really hoping on another season of high batting average, high on base, solid slug, because he's not going to hit a ton of home runs, just 10 home runs last season for this player. So before we get to player number 2 and 3, and Ethan, we'll reveal all 3 at the end. What's your interest level on this player number 1?
I know the player, and I'll tell you, this is a name that just really, really low. Obviously the idea of a mystery player is to take the name out of it.
Sure.
This is a name where I saw it and I'm like, oh God, like the exact example of why we do mystery players. And the numbers do show better than I think that the player has been at himself. As I read Futz's comment, you had me at platoon, I'm in.
So I think the Phillies ask would be different than Like, I still think this guy has a chance to get a starting job somewhere.
Yeah.
And that would be the deterrent for him signing here.
Yes. I definitely see that, where he had a much better year last year than years prior have flourished for him to be. So I definitely see that this is like a realistic hope, but again, there is still opportunity out there for him
Sure.
to have a starting job. So I'd be interested, but again, like, this is, I don't think this moves the needle.
At $6
really.
million versus pre-arbitration, would you take this player or Otto Kemp?
I might take Otto Kemp.
I think
knowing who it is,
you might have some. You might have some support on that one. Maybe not from me personally, but I think looking at money and things like that, you put it all into perspective. Elephant in the room says would prefer to stick with Kemp over this player.
Yeah. I think just thinking where the floor has been for him, and knowing at a point in his career that he's coming, like almost Harrison Bader-esque, where you see the long-term numbers versus what he just did most recently. And I even feel less about him than I do about Bader. So I definitely would feel much better with Kemp, and just the fact that you're throwing a dart at the wall and you never know.
So player number 1, career year regression possibility. Player number 2, second verse, same as the first. Career year regression possibility, part number 2. By the way, that first player, 31 years old. Player number 2, 31. Projected market value is just over $10 million per season. This player had career highs in average on base and OPS this past season, and his 2025 slug was only beaten by his 2021 slug. You see 17 home runs, 54 RBI, 42 extra base hits, and the 117 OPS plus he posted this year is a career high. Now, what does this player do well? Defense is definitely a strong suit there. You see 92nd percentile of defensive plays made in terms of outs above average. The arm strength is also there. You also still see, much like in the first player, a lot of blue in terms of expected value versus actual value. Hard hit percentages, average exit velocity, chase rates are bad. Squared up percentages are not particularly good. Strikeout rates were high, but what this player did do well was everything elevated last season compared to what you saw in over his career. As I said, average OBP, OPS. You also get career highs in hits, doubles, home runs, RBI. Barrel rates went through the roof. His hard hit percentage, which was still low, by the way, at 40.3%, was a career high. His average exit velocity was tied for a career best. And with all of this, all of those career bests in play, his expected batting average was 57 points below his actual average, and his expected slug was 75% or 75 points lower than his actual slug. As we said, the things that he does well are undeniable. He's a great defender. He's a great base runner. He himself had a career year heading into free agency. And much like with player number 1, I fear that there is an offensive regression coming. And this is a player, unlike player 1, who I think signs to a 1-year deal, I think player 2 still is looking for a multi-year investment. Now, I don't love the stat WAR. It's not all-encompassing stat. I think sometimes these types of players or that stat can be misguiding, because Ryan Howard is the prime example of a player with a bad WAR who is not a bad player. But this is a player who had an 8 career WAR over his first 8 seasons, averaging 1 WAR per season. He posted a 2.6 last year alone. I don't know of a player that could sustainably, over a 2 or 3 year stretch that I think this player is going to achieve, have a 260% increase in WAR year over year for 3 straight years. I think this player is also a candidate for regression, and I wonder if that's a stopping point for the Phillies as well.
Yeah, I'm in a very similar boat. I think when you consider the years and what this player have, I even feel less about, I don't know, because I was also going to touch on defensively. I think he brings a lot more value than what mystery player number 1 brings.
This player is tenfold the better defender than player 1.
And I have to consider that versus the number of years.
And a better base runner too.
Yeah, and I have to consider that versus the number of years, and I'm still undecided on that.
That's the thing. Like player 1, even though I think he can get a starting job, I do think signs a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
Player 2 definitely should get a starting job and will very likely get a 2 or 3 year deal.
Yeah. So a lot of factors to consider. I don't know how I would rank that, because I mean, pending lockout, pending how being that this player had kind of a small window of positive production to almost open this up and almost open this multi-year window up for him. I don't know. That is really hard how I would rank them.
Player number 1 is Miguel Andujar. Now, Miguel Andujar is a guy that I think many teams covet because of what we talked about with the low strikeout rate, low whiff rate type of stuff, the bat-to-ball skills. Even if he's not necessarily hitting the ball particularly hard all the time, there is a lot to like in terms of this guy doesn't strike out, this guy doesn't whiff. And the fact that he can play a handful of different positions, I think that adds to it. I think Andujar is going to be a starter for one of those teams made mention. 2 of them, by the way, he played for last year, the Cincinnati Reds and the Athletics. And then you also look at teams like the Rangers, the Cardinals. Now, I think the Padres and the Cubs probably would settle in some kind of platoon role of some kind. But some of those other teams, he's going to get a starting look. And while I think that it would be a great addition for the Phillies to add that type of bat to the lineup, I do still think that there is a regression chance coming. And I think he also is going to make more money on a 1-year deal than that $6 million market value. So I think that while I would be interested for sure, I do still think this guy has a chance to be a starter. Player number 2, no surprise, yes, John Peace, it is Harrison Bader. And I know that a lot of people talk about bringing Harrison Bader back, and is it running it back? Is it not? Now, you know the good and you know the bad with Bader. You know he can play excellent defense. You know he's an awesome base runner. You know last year he was a spark plug type of player for this team when they acquired him at the trade deadline. And I also know that everything he did last year was well above his career average. It was, as we said, a 2.6 WAR season compared to being a 8 WAR player over 8 seasons. That's 1 WAR per season on the dot. He was a 2.6 WAR player last year. I think this guy still gets a multi-year deal. I don't know if it's here or elsewhere. I would have to think that once Bellinger signs, the market for Bader probably takes shape a little bit more. But I do still think he gets a multi-year deal. And I think that is going to dissuade the Phillies from bringing him in as that type of player. While I do believe he still could be helpful for the Phillies, even in an offensive regression season, I think that he is going to command more years than the Phillies are willing to offer.